I think there's something very interesting sitting there where, you know, you mentioned comfort and you mentioned what people are familiar with. And I think humans are naturally traditionalists. We stick to what we know. And Blume is part of what we are, is we try to bridge the gap between, you know, things that seem contrasted but shouldn't be. Because there's normally a natural connection from one thing to the other, in the same way that youth moved to business, right? But what I find interesting about this is the connection is a fear of the unknown. I think there's such a, there's reason and there's wrong in a little bit of everything. I like to believe, you know. So maybe, you know, you have concerns about what this Sangoma says, but I would have concerns about what a doctor says to me.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much we know, and there's a little bit of right here, there's a little bit of right there. So I think you're in a very interesting position to be in between the two worlds.
Yeah.
And it gives you a lot of interesting exposure. So I think my question would be, how do you move? How do you break people out of that traditionalist mindset? How do you make them think, hey, maybe I shouldn't be bathing in this strange liquid, or maybe this medication is a placebo and the doctor just wants to get money out of me?
Maybe this is making me sicker than I am.
We don't know. I think operating in that space to kind of give your perspective to the older generation, it's hard, because whenever I try, and I've actually like low-key given up, whenever I try to influence, for instance, my parents to see things differently from the way that they've constructed their minds and their lives, they immediately reject it because they're not open to change. But what I can do is look at our generation and how we can relate with each other, and then look at the next generation, like my nieces, my nephews, and try and give them the option to be open to all the kinds of possibilities. Because this whole thing of having that fear of the unknown, I think the fact that someone has done the research and deciphered that, okay, there's such a thing as bipolar disorder, this is what's happening in the chemicals in the brain, and this is how this medication effectively, remedies that or treats that. It's as if you can't even comprehend that kind of research has been done enough for you to trust that this is what you have. Or maybe that disbelief, it's like, no, I'm in control, this is my mind, you can't tell me there's something wrong, like there's that kind of thing that's happening. So because now we're exposed to how the information has been brought about, and the fact that there's evidence and there's people who have been treated with their testimonies, we have real proof that you can consider treatment in a more, what is the right word? In a more active way than just relying on one person's opinion or one person's remedy. It's like, if you're not actively fixing the problem, because these are algorithms in your mind, essentially, but they've been tampered with because of different reasons that kind of seem illogical to some people. But just this generation and the next generation, I have immense hope for, and whoever in the previous generation is open to change, I have hope for. So,
I'd like to highlight something that I find very important with dealing with my own mental health issues and my own depression, is that there is power in speaking about what is going on in your mind, how you feel on a daily basis, how certain situations make you feel. There is so much power, whether you decide to go and speak to a Sangoma, or whether you decide to speak to your parents, or you decide to go and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. There is so much power in that, because not only does it allow you to get other people's opinions, and other people can rationalize some of your irrational feelings about yourself or thoughts, but also it allows you to rationalize it. And when you hear yourself say these things, it's not just in your head anymore.
It's real.
It's real. It's out there.
But at the same time, then it's just words, and you say these things, and then you see, oh wow, the world didn't end.
Exactly.
It becomes more tangible.
Exactly.
And
that they're just words, but they're actually real feelings.
Yes, they're valid. They're completely
valid. They're valid, but
you might pull them with another person like taffy.
But the words
make sense.
They're not going to break anything. The world's not going to end if you say the words and you say how you feel.
Or say what happened to you. Or just own your experiences, own your feelings.
Exactly. I found that really powerful with myself because I've also gone through depression, and I went through for about 10 years before I actually decided to get help. And you were speaking about the fear of the unknown, and I lived in the fear of the unknown for 10 years until I sat myself down and I said, how much longer do I want to feel like this? I don't want to feel like this anymore. I'm tired of it.
Yes.
I want to be happy. I want to feel joy. I want to feel laughter. I want to make better friends.
Yes.
And
that
I-
decision is so important.
It's so powerful.
It can't actually
Because-
happen until you decide.
Because no one's
Yes.
telling you that you need to feel this way. No one's forcing you to do it. It comes from you, and that's where your power lies, within you. And I told myself, there are medical professionals, people who have studied for years and gotten doctorates. Why would I not put my faith in them? Why would that's just it's for me.
Or at least try it.
You know,
At least give it a shot.
exactly.
Yes.
It's for me because I didn't feel like I had any other option
Yes.
but to go and see a psychologist because my family wasn't really helping me. I wasn't open enough with them to tell them where I am in my life. And for me, it was better to go to someone who doesn't know me and speak to them rather.
Speak
With-
freely.
Yeah,
There's no consequences.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's no consequences. There's no judgment. There's none of that. It's just this person has a medical background. They have knowledge about what I'm going through, and therefore they can help me.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I think what also, in terms of that choice, and in terms of what we're talking about now, is that when you're put in an environment where people are not supporting you to get to that choice, that's a problem. When people
Yeah.
are like, just get over it, and not validating what you're feeling, then you compress and you can't heal from that position. It's only when you're like, okay, I'm ready to
Yeah.
get better.
I'm ready to take it into my own hands.
I'm ready
Yeah.
to accept that it has always been in my hands.
Exactly.
And actually
Exactly.
do something about it for me. Not to try hold up a facade for anyone else anymore, not to try be what's expected of me because of my culture, because of my background, because of what my parents want, or whatever,
Yeah.
Just to actually take this and mold this ugly thing into something beautiful,
Yeah.
and mold yourself. But you have to make that choice, otherwise no one can help you. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you go to Sangoma, go to a psychologist, take medication, if you're not ready within you to actually heal, it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
I think that's very important. And something else, I just want to add on what you were saying about change,
Yeah.
is also, like, okay, not that long ago the world was flat, right?
Yeah.
And now it's not.
Yeah.
Not that long ago, the only Sangomas were the only option, and now they're not. And now things are growing and things are
And
changing.
evolving.
And even with our medicine, it's growing and changing in the way that we heal things and the way that we treat things. I mean, like electrotherapy was also a
Yeah,
thing at a
yeah.
stage,
Even just spirituality. People bring
Exactly.
spirituality a lot
Exactly.
more into mental health illness
Exactly.
now, but in a more productive way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not in like it's your ancestors that are causing this. It's actually just about you and your spirit
Your being.
and how you feel
Exactly.
and how you go about bettering how you feel.
And it's nice because like we don't just shock gay people anymore, Well, in some parts of the world they still do, and this is the
Yeah.
thing. This is what I'm saying. Is like our medicine is developing as we're developing, and
Yeah.
we need to sort of if we find something that works, that's great. But accept that maybe it's not going to be the only thing that works, and accept that maybe in future there'll be something that's even better.
Yeah.
And
'Cause we don't
learning
know
new
everything
things.
yet.
Exactly.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
don't know. We know. What do we know?
We're still learning.
You
We're
have to.
still toddlers in
Yeah.
the scope of the world,
Yeah.
I suppose.
The only real thing to
Yeah.
know is that we don't know very much, and
Yeah.
that's great. Like be
The best thing to
open-minded.
know.
It's a constant process of evolving.
Exactly.
And I think there's a certain point where, regardless of what kind of situation you're raised in, there's a roof. There's an eventual threshold you have to cross where you have to expose yourself to new perspectives, to new experiences if you want to have greater understandings. And I want to use that as a segue. Because we're professionals.
We've planned this.
No, so well. So we've kind of touched on a lot of interesting points, but on this topic of perspective, one of your other points was the aftermath of colonialism and apartheid on African culture and how Western medicine is perceived. I would love to know more about that.
Yeah. Thing is, like, I actually did a research paper on, like, touching on this topic. So I know the barriers of the information sources, the fact that most of the research I've done was written from different perspectives, but my consensus is this. I believe there was a huge effect, especially on African culture, black people, because of apartheid. And I'm not talking about the obvious effect, I'm not talking about the physical effect. I'm talking about the psychological aftermath of how black people perceive themselves because of the hell that they went through during apartheid. And I do this because I found myself in the position where I was diagnosed with anxiety. It was really affecting my life. It still sort of does, but at the time it was hectic. I went to my mom and dad, and I told them that this is what happened because I had a panic attack. I went straight to the emergency room because I passed out, and doctor was like, "Yo, you're messed up." No, but like for real, they would, the whole thing happened. I was diagnosed. Went to my parents.
Like that on your report.
Yo,
You got issues.
got issues, fam. Deal with that. But yeah, and approaching my parents with it, they would try and make me understand their perspective of life and be like, okay, Zintle, listen, let me tell you about life. This is how I grew up. And then they tell me about their hardships, and they tell me how bad it was and how nice I have it. So
I know that.
need to calm down. So it's rough, but I learned this thing of really trying to understand other people's perspectives, especially if they're holding a person back from, But when I look at my dad's story, how he grew up in the depths of poverty, and apartheid affected him because of the structures that limited him, and they were constantly in, what's the word?
In fear.
In defense mode. And those kind of things resonated in their minds, and they had to find ways to survive, to deal with the trauma. Trauma is a thing that doesn't last very long. Let's move on. We have to live. But I know that that's a thing that every person has to do to live. It's not just black people. It's not just white people. It's everybody. And my mom, she grew up in exile. She grew up in the worst situations, running away from soldiers who were raping little girls, and fighting for survival, not having clothes, not having food to eat, begging. Like, that's their life. That's their upbringing.
It was their reality.
It was their reality, and I had the most incredible childhood. So it's like, what's wrong with your brain, dude? Like, there shouldn't be anything wrong because we made sure that your life was structured like this.